Hello and welcome to my online painting lessons. For this lesson, we're going to be using a 16 by 20 inch canvas. And for our colors, we're going to start out with ultramarine blue, titanium white, raw umber, and alizarin crimson. The canvas I'm using is a pre-stretched canvas, so it's pre-primed with titanium gesso and stretched on stretcher bars. So there's a little bit of tension on the canvas that gives it a little bit of spring when I apply the paint. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up some of my ultramarine blue. I'm going to take a large round brush, add just a little bit of water to soften the bristles up. I'm going to take some ultramarine blue, a little bit of alizarin crimson, and some titanium white. I'm going to go a little bit more alizarin, just to get a nice purplish hue. Okay, then what I want to do is add just a little touch of raw umber. Now I'm adding raw umber to make this more grayish. Go a little bit more white. Touch more blue. Touch more alizarin. Once I've got a nice blue-gray color like this, I'm just going to take my large round brush, and if you look at the reference photo that I've given you, which is at the bottom of this page, you can see a nice cloud formation. And what I want to do is just mimic that cloud formation just like that. So I'm drawing the top portion of the cloud, but I'm being very loose with it. I'm not copying the painting or the reference photo exact. I'm just giving somewhat of an idea or a similar shape. Then I want to fill up above. And you want to get a layer of paint that's pretty thick because we don't want any of the white canvas showing through. So try to make sure that you've got enough paint on your brush that when you cover up this top portion, there's no little white specks showing through. We can always adjust this shape as we paint in the cloud. So our main focus is getting a basic idea of this shape and really filling in up top here. Okay, so we've got a really nice basic setup. We've got a nice thick layer. Once you have that thick layer, you can go around with your brush and lightly feather, smooth down the paint, and just really make sure that that layer is covering the canvas really well, and that you don't have any of those little white specks showing through that can happen sometimes on a textured canvas. So that's step one. What we want to do now is take that same color we were just using and mix a bunch more, but on a lighter value. Okay, I've brought you in closer now so you can see the process of doing this edge, and I'm going to bring you in even closer as I go over this, but I'm going to mix some paint first. So what we're going to do is take that same color that we were using for the sky, we're going to add more titanium white to it, and just a touch more alizarin. So we're lightening the value and shifting the color a little bit more purple. So that's a nice color right there. We're going to load the brush up. Still using that same brush, which is a round brush. And what I want to do is use the brush shape to my advantage. So I'm going to start placing the paint on like this. And I'm just going to bring it close to the edge for right now. I'm going to add a little bit more alizarin and white, just a little bit. Just want to get it a little bit more purple. There, that's just right. Okay, so I'm bringing the paint up close to the edge. And I'm going to go down just a couple inches, maybe to there. Again, I'm really putting the paint on nice and thick so I can really get good coverage. I don't want any of the white canvas, the little specks showing through. I'll fill in down to that little guideline that I set. Okay, now what I'm going to do is bring you in closer so you can see how I tackle this edge as I go up and create. Okay, with my same brush, what I'm going to do is point the brush up and slowly feather. I'm pushing, dabbing, and pulling down. So what I can do is slowly overlap into the sky. And the bristles will create a nice soft edge. If you went really quickly, and you're lucky, your sky color will still be wet. Mine isn't. Mine's dry now, which probably most of yours will be. But if it's still wet, you'll actually be able to blend those two edges together and create a nice soft edge. But since acrylic paint dries so quickly, most likely what you're going to have to do is with a thin layer of paint, you're pointing that brush up and really feathering that edge. So you can see now you can manipulate the shape of the cloud a little bit. I'm adding little extra contours here and there. Just going slow, pushing outside the edge. I'm not going just to the edge, I'm going outside the edge, way up into the sky. So that way, everything ties together nicely. One thing to look for here is repetitive shapes. If you start making the same contour shape over and over, maybe turn the brush this way and get a little contour. Then maybe press a little bit harder and get a bigger contour. The key is to really get variety. So really try to focus on avoiding any of those repetitive patterns within your contours. You're going to get a few, which is fine, but if you start making the same shape, like you have these three right here, that's probably okay. But if you have something like that over and over and over, it's going to look cartoony. So what you can do is just manipulate one little edge like that, and it breaks up that repetitive pattern. So just going outside the edge still here. And we're going to soften this edge even more later with some transparent paint. For now, we want to get it soft, but it doesn't have to be perfect. It can have a little bit of a hard edge to it. All right, so that's the edge. You want to make sure you don't have any little white flecks showing through on that edge. Make sure you overlapped far enough into the sky where you're not having those white canvas pieces showing through. Once you've got that covered, you're ready to move on to painting in the bottom portion of the canvas, and then we'll go back and start adding in transparent layers to create some nice atmosphere. Okay, for my next step, I want to fill in all the way down to the bottom portion of my canvas. That's going to eliminate all of this stark white canvas, and we'll be able to see our values better up here. Right now, this bright white is going to be really distracting if we started adding highlights to our cloud now. So by filling in down here, we neutralize everything, kind of make everything a mid-tone, and then we can build up our values light and dark from there. So I'm going to take the same color. I'm going to add just a little touch of water just to kind of reactivate my paint a little bit. And I'm going to take some more alizarin and more blue, more titanium white, and I want to make a color that's a little bit darker, a little bit more purple than what's already up here. So you can see that's about right there. I'm going to start filling in and try not to throw my canvas off the easel here. I'm going to fill in about a third of the way. And I'll show you how to fix up this line up here in a second. What I want to do right now is focus on getting down so there's about a third of the canvas left. And now again, it's really important that you get a nice thick layer of paint on there so that way the white canvas isn't showing through. As we go down, I'm going to add more blue, some alizarin, a little bit of white. But now we're getting darker as we work our way down through the canvas. So that's just a slightly darker color. And we're going to try to blend it here since our paint's still wet. So start right at this edge here and scrub a little bit, back and forth, side to side. We'll get a little bit of a blend there. Make sure you're getting a good layer of paint on the canvas. As acrylic paint dries, it shrinks a little bit. So that causes those little white specks, little specks of white canvas showing through. That happens because as the paint dries, it shrinks a little bit. It kind of goes down into the crevices of the canvas and it exposes some of those little white spots. So by getting a good enough thick layer of paint on here, you can avoid that. Way down here at the bottom, if a little bit of canvas shows through here and there, again, try not to throw your canvas off the easel. It's better if you can attach it, but I'm using my big easel right now, and a smaller canvas. So it doesn't really want to stay when I prop it up here on the edge. But we'll just worry about that for this step, and then it should be fine from here. All right, so I'm going to prop this back up. Try not to throw it off the easel. All right, so what I want to do now is take that same color I'm working with, add some more white to it. We're lightening it right back up. And I'm just going to go along this edge here and just scrub along. And I'm not worried about getting this perfectly blended. I just want to create a little bit of a transitional connection here. Just like that. That's really all you need to do at this point, because what we're going to do is add lots of layers onto this, and all of this blending type of stuff, even if it's not blended well, will disappear anyway. So our big things for this point is having a nice edge right here and a slow, gradual transition into a darker purple down bottom. So we're in really good shape here. It doesn't have to be perfectly blended through here, because like I said, we're going to be doing more layers over all of this later anyway, even up here in the sky. So let's let that dry for about 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll move on to our next step. Okay, for my next step, what I'm going to do is start breaking down the cloud into contours or sections. And what you can do is look at the reference photo and see the different types of ridges that are going up through the cloud. We're not going to make it completely accurate or 100% the same as the reference photo, in other words, but what we're going to do is make something similar. So just look for those ridges and go from there. I'm going to either be using a small filbert brush or a small round brush. Either one works fine. Just a small rounded brush will work perfectly fine. I'm going to start out with a filbert brush for this. And we've switched to zinc white now. So I've got zinc white here. I'm going to take just a little ultramarine blue. And the color I'm mixing on is dry. What I'm trying to do is make it a similar color. We're going to use lots of zinc white because we want it to be lighter. We also want it to be a little bit more pinkish. Okay, so a nice kind of pinkish light color. And the first thing I'm going to do is create that first ridge. So I'm going to go and I'm painting in the negative space here. I'm going to paint the color up away from that ridge. So we're making the cloud a little bit more pinkish, and at the same time we're leaving this ridge here in the negative space. Like I said, not 100% exactly the same as the reference photo, but close. I'm just going to fill all the way in. With that pinkish color. Okay, and then we kind of have the ridge or contour coming right up close to the front like that. Okay, and then over here, there's a little opening in behind. All right, so then we've got this over here, this ridge coming down and creating a new one. So I'm going to start in the low point here and work my way up, leaving that dark ridge up at the top. So you can see I leave this little dark line here that creates the outline of the contour shape for now. So I'll just reinforce this, make it a little bit lighter at the base, and then blend up a little bit. Eventually we'll make this a little bit more yellowish. For now, it's going to be mostly kind of a pink color. Okay, then over here we've got another little ridge, and it kind of just disappears. So I'm just going to have that kind of disappear off to the right. Then there's a shadow cast this way. So we'll just kind of fill in a little bit here with this pinkish color. And maybe another little ridge right here. And what I'm going to do is start going a little bit more alizarin in my mix, just to make it a little bit more pink as I work my way down. So down here we'll go a little bit more pink as I create this last ridge. So we're painting in the negative space. Painting in those low points and working our way up. But leaving that little bit of blue on the edge to create the shape of the contour. Okay, I'm going to switch to just a bigger round brush. Same color. Just going to be able to cover more ground. So I'm just going to carry this kind of pinkish color over here. Still leave that little bit of blue up at the very top of the ridge. I'm going to work the color right up close to it. Okay, so the ridges are really subtle. They're hard to see at first. What we have to do is keep working the color up more and more to make them more noticeable. The reason why we're doing it this way, instead of just painting them on, is so we can gradually get to a yellow color without making green. It's really simple to kind of end up with a greenish hue when you're trying to work with blue and yellow together. So what I'm going to do now is go a little bit more alizarin with my zinc white, and I'm going to do almost kind of like a wash or a haze over the middle section of the cloud. So we've got a little bit of our ultramarine blue in there, but we're mostly going for kind of a pink color. And in through this section we've got a little bluish contour coming down through. Down to about here. So we're just turning the rest of this cloud over here into more of a pinkish hue. Again, leaving that ridge, that little blue line at the top. We're going to bring this down a little bit since I kind of made this, this section over here a little bit too light blue, which is kind of messing with the overall value. So I'm going to make my darker blue cloud that you see in the reference photo start a little bit lower. So sometimes you got to make those adjustments depending on how your colors turn out. Okay, so now I've got a pretty good setup here. I've made my cloud a little bit more pink overall, especially in the middle section. That's where the cloud is most pink. But with the zinc white, what's happening is we're getting some of that blue showing through it, creating a more natural looking color. You can see the little ridges that I left, little blue lines. That's all negative space. What we're going to do now is slowly build that up with our zinc white mixture. So I'm going to take that same pink color and go quite a bit more zinc white in it. And what I'm going to do is I don't want to go that white. I want to keep it still pretty pink. There we go. What I'm going to do is just go to these low points, these little valleys above that blue ridge, and slowly scrub the paint out towards the edge. So what happens is this blue ridge pops out. It's a little bit brighter now, or a little bit more bold. And we make the top part of the cloud a little bit lighter. And like I mentioned before, eventually we'll make that more yellowish. So I'm moving down here into the second part of the cloud, starting kind of at a low point and slowly blending up. But I do not want to eliminate that blue. So I'm coming close to it, even scrubbing on it a little bit. But we want to keep that little bit of blue ridge. We can always paint it back in later if you do end up covering it up a little bit. Okay, we want to leave a little bit of shadow being cast from this bump right here. This will be a shadow, so we're mimicking the same shape. Okay, and I'm going to go right up along this ridge here. And the thing about these clouds is it just takes a lot of layers to really get everything to start showing up. So I'm going to keep working along this ridge, not eliminating that blue, just starting in those low points and blending up and away. Slowly having the paint dissipate as it gets higher. Okay, I'm going to go back to my bigger brush now. And even though I want to keep this kind of pinkish down here, I want to go a little bit lighter in value. So starting kind of low, doing a little bit of a wash of color, bringing it up close to that ridge. Because the zinc white will fade as the darker colors underneath start to show through. Okay, I'm going to go back to my small brush again. I'm going to stick with the same color, I'm not changing the color. The color will look different on the canvas because it has faded as it dried, but I'm going to go another round of the same color, pink and zinc white. And this time, I'm going to break it up into smaller sections. This part's really hard. Look at the reference photo, look to see if you can see little sections. What I'm doing is just breaking this up, leaving a few more little blue ridges within the bigger sections. So not doing a whole lot of extra ridges, but just breaking it up a little bit. And we want to work that color right out close to that blue ridge. Okay, so it's very subtle. Then we'll go up above, which really helps bring that ridge out. Okay, I'm going to move down to this section here. I'm just going to break this down into a couple little smaller sections. Same type of idea. But you can see I took this big section here, left a little bit of a ridge right there, so now I've got it broken down into two sections. Okay, now this bigger piece is a little bit easier to break down, this big piece right here. So what you can do is just start maybe over here, create a new contour, and we're blending up to the blue ridge. Okay, so now I've broken that down a little bit more. Should have gone a little bit more pink with that though. So let's break this down here a little bit. Bring it up. What I want to do is make this part a little bit more pink. But leaving that little bit of a blue ridge at the very top of the contour. Okay, I'll break it down over here a little bit. Okay, so you can start to see all of these little blue ridges at the top of the contours, and that's what we really want to go for. I'm just going to go into this section here and make it a little more pink, just because I made it a little too white. So just a little more alizarin crimson added in to my mixture. That makes it much better, more cohesive. Okay, I'm going to break this part up again. I'm just following the same shape as before. And making this part a little bit brighter. Okay, I'm going to shave this part down just a little bit. So I'm going right along that blue ridge, shaving it down just a tad. Then I'm going to do a round of a little bit lighter. We'll take some of that alizarin, some zinc. Still keep it pretty pink. We don't want to lose a lot of the vibrance of the color. Go a little bit lighter. Start lighter down low here. Okay, then I gotta almost go back into this section here, since I kind of overlapped it a little too much. Okay, I'm gonna call that good for right now. What I'm gonna do next is start shifting my color to more of a yellowish, peachy color. Okay, so for my next round, I'm gonna start making it more yellow. And what I wanna do is make sure I keep my yellow out of this mixture up here, because I don't want it to be blue, or have blue in it. So I'm gonna take some zinc white and my alizarin, and I'm gonna take some yellow. We're gonna make a nice peachy color. We're gonna add a bunch of zinc white to that. Okay, so nice peach color. And I'm just going to go and do the same as before. Starting these low points. And work my way up. So I want to keep those ridges. You can shape them down really close. Slowly work your color out. That's a little too bright, but it's okay for now. It will fade a little bit. Okay, I'm going to work down here while that dries. because I'm going to come back to that and fix that up a little bit. Okay, so working my way down. Go down into this section now. Work my way up to that ridge. As I go down further, I'm going to go a little bit more pink, so just a little touch more of my alizarin in the mixture. Still a little bit of yellow, zinc white, but a little bit more pink now. Oh, it's a little too bright there, so just tone it down a little bit. It'll fade as it dries. Just mixing up some more of my color. Okay, then I'm going to go to my large brush again. Go a little bit more pinkish. Do a little bit of a wash. Has a little bit of that yellow in it. Okay, so now it's a matter of going back again. I'm going to clean my small brush off. Going into my pinkish color, peachy color, a little bit of yellow. We're going lighter now. So alizarin crimson, yellow ochre, zinc white. Again, you can kind of break this up into smaller sections. Okay, we'll slowly work our way over here. As we go down, just add a little bit more color, so it's a little more saturated, but the value should be getting lighter. So maybe a little bit more yellowish in through this section here, and then we'll get more pinkish as we go down. Okay, I'm going to go another round now. We're going to take a little bit of yellow, some zinc white, some pink. So we're going a little bit lighter in value now. Starting again. So we're starting to get a little bit brighter, breaking it up into smaller sections. I'm just basically following the same sections every time, just going a little bit more color, a little bit more value. Really getting right up close to that bluish ridge, almost scrubbing right over it to soften it up. As we go down, we're still going yellowish, but getting a little bit more pink in the mix. We'll even make this a little more yellowish over here. Okay, and then this overall section down low, grab a little bit more yellow, some zinc white, some alizarin, just kind of a thinner wash here, making this have a few little more yellowish tints to it. This will fade a little bit as it dries. Okay, I'm going to let that sit and dry for a minute before going on to my next step. All right, so I'm going to go another round here. I'm going to take my yellow ochre, my zinc, a little bit of alizarin, nice yellowy peachy color. We'll start going a little bit more yellowish. Very thin layer here. We want to keep it thin so that way the pink shows through. And you can even make some more new contours with this yellowish. So you can see I created this new contour out of the pink. I'm going to work this color up, right up close to that ridge. Okay, and then we'll go a little bit more yellowish over here. We'll start adding a little bit of that yellowish haze down through this section down in the middle. If you want, you can go a little bit bigger brush, just a flat brush here, to scrub the color around a little bit more. Okay, and I'll just keep it a little bit more pink down below here. Okay, and I'm going to go back up top again. We're going to keep going lighter. So I'm going to go back into my zinc white, a little bit of yellow. And again, starting in those lower spots. Slowly building up closer to those ridges that we've been creating. You want to maintain those ridges, but bring it right up close. You can even overlap a little bit. They're dark enough usually to overlap a little bit. So that way you can soften them up. So you've got this ridge here. You can scrub right over it a little bit. Haze it down a little bit. As long as the layer of paint is really, really thin. I'm going to break up this section here a little bit more. I'm going to add a couple new contours. So just some negative space, creating a little bit of a ridge right here. Like I said, you can go right up over the blue ridges a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to go a little bit lighter. So I'm taking the same color, just yellow ochre, zinc white. I'm going lighter again. I always like to test the color to see the value. If it looks too bright, I just go a little bit more yellow. Starting to get brighter. So you can see the amount of layers it takes to make these clouds is quite substantial. It takes a lot of time and patience. So just work on this in sections, take a break every once in a while. Okay, so now again, we're just going to go another round lighter. So just taking the same color mixture, adding more zinc white. Starting again, it's a little too bright right there, so we want to gradually get up to that point, but right now, keeping it a little bit more yellow. And eventually, getting it brighter. Almost to the point where it's pure white eventually. Okay, I plan on doing more layers up top, but for now, what I want to do is go back down here to the bottom and actually darken the value of the bottom part of the cloud. So I'm going to take some of my zinc white, some alizarin, and some ultramarine blue. I'm going to take a little touch of yellow, and what that's going to do is neutralize the alizarin into more of a grayish color. I might just test it up here. Go a little bit more blue. Okay, so that's a pretty good color there. And what I want to do is take this color and start scrubbing it down. So I want the value to be a little bit darker. I'm going to go with this color though, over on this side. We're just kind of graying down the cloud down in this section. I'm going to take that same color. I'm going to hit this shadow with that color. And then this shadow up here. And then I'm going to go a little bit darker. So I'm just adding a little bit more ultramarine blue. As I paint down this contour. So we're just kind of graying down the section down below here and making it a little bit darker. So by mixing the yellow ochre into our cloud color, what happens is the yellow ochre and the alizarin crimson are close complements, and that creates more of a gray color. So instead of getting green, you're getting gray by adding in that yellow ochre. If you ever feel like it's too purple, just add some more ultramarine blue and zinc white, and you'll get more of a gray. I'm just going to add some water to this, just so I can spread it around easier. Try to get it even. I kind of like the brush strokes. The thin brush strokes allow some of the underneath color to show through, which make it look more atmospheric. Okay, and eventually we'll have some trees down here at the bottom, so I'm not going to worry about it getting perfectly even down bottom. I just want to get it covered, but I'm not worried about having even brush strokes down here. Up here, more so. So you can brush over it a few times, but down here, not quite as important. Just get some coverage. Okay, now I'm going to take that same color. We're going to create a little atmosphere in the sky by adding some white to it. So we've got ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, yellow ochre, and white. And I'm just going to brush over my blue sky. This thin layer, it's thinned out with water. And I really want to keep the brush moving. So we're slowly altering the color and creating some atmosphere. So you can see that I brush right down into the cloud, and that's because I'm keeping the paint so thin that it's super, super transparent. So I'm going to do this a few times to create some atmosphere, but it's okay to start up here and brush right down over the cloud a little bit, because we're going to be adding more layers to the cloud anyway, and this will help soften the edges as well. But make sure that that paint is super, super thin. And keep moving it around so it doesn't get too concentrated into one spot. Okay, and do a little bit more over here. I'm going to call that good for now. We'll see how it dries and go from there. In the meantime, I'm going to take my large brush, a little alizarin, some white, kind of mixed in with that sky color. Kind of recreate this little valley here. And I want to soften up this edge here a little bit. So I'm going to take that same alizarin crimson mix, and I'm going to manipulate the edge, so I'm overlapping it and recreating it so I can keep it nice and soft. Okay, so what I'm probably gonna have to do is another layer over here. You can see it's really kind of getting sparse as it dries, but I'm gonna let it dry completely so it's easier to paint right over. In the meantime, I'm gonna go back up to the top and start layering in some more highlights. Okay, I'm gonna grab some of my white. I'm actually gonna put some new zinc white on here just because it's starting to get a little mixed up too much with the other colors. So I'm gonna put a new little daub of paint on my palette. Go fresh here. So I'll go with some of that zinc, little touch of the yellow. Start lining up again. I want to edge this out a little bit more over that ridge. I want it to be really subtle. As it dries, it will become more seeable. Work this color right out to the close to the edge there. So it's just a matter of continuing to build up this brightness around some of these ridges. Trying to shave them down a little bit here and there. And the further we work down, the more yellow we'll add to the mix. Okay, I'm going to add I'm going to take some of that sky color that we were just using. So, a little alizarin, some ultramarine blue, and a little touch of yellow ochre. Get a nice gray. I'm just going to touch up the outside edge here. Now, if you want to reestablish some of your contours, let's say you lost some of your contours, you can add some of this color to reestablish those. We're going to put some shadow over here. So, let's say over here we want to kind of reestablish this edge. You can take some of that sky color, scrub over that edge. Just try to make sure you keep it nice and soft. Okay, maybe I'll take some of that peachy color here. So alizarin crimson, yellow ochre, zinc white, pop in a little bit more vibrancy in this middle area. Okay, every once in a while, if you want to eliminate a few ridges, if you feel like you get too many, just take some of your zinc white, yellow ochre, alizarin crimson, and you can kind of knock out a few. We'll bring this shadow down a little bit closer. Maybe we'll have this connect up a little bit better. Sometimes the ridges don't have to always continue on forever. Sometimes they can kind of just disappear. So maybe a ridge comes along and then just kind of disappears into the rest of the cloud. Just blending together with a dry brush here. Okay, I'm gonna go back to my yellow ochre, a little zinc white, and tidy up this part of the cloud here where I re-added some of those shadows. Okay, I'm going to make this side of the shadow a little bit more yellowish. So I'm going to grab a little bit of alizarin, some yellow ochre, zinc white, I'm just going to brush over this side of the cloud and a little bit over some of the shadows here to give it a little bit more of a yellowish hue. Okay, I'm going to continue a little bit of yellow ochre, zinc white, and we'll go a little bit more careful now. Really kind of brightening this up. I want to bring it right down close. To that edge. Covered it up a little too much, just wipe it off easily with my finger. I'll reestablish that there. There we go. We'll get a little bit of color peeking out over here. Still going lighter as I work my way down. This will fade a little bit as it dries. Okay, so down here I'm just going to hint a little bit of a lighter color. So going very soft with the brush, very thin with the paint. Even down here, just hinting at some atmosphere, a little bit of a lighter color. Go a little bit brighter here. Okay, then what I'm going to do, take a little alizarin, mix it in with that color. So we're going a lot more pinkish now. Just going to suggest a little of the pinky color. Have this kind of transition down into the pink. Maybe I'll work the pink down right through here a little bit. Just create some more textures, variation in shape. I'm going to add just a little bit of that pink to some of these ridges, mostly down low. Do a little, just a really light scrubbing of some pink up top. Maybe over here. Okay, I'm going to go back up top again with my zinc white and yellow. I'm going to hit some really kind of bright spots, these low valleys. It's going to really start to illuminate the cloud. Okay, now what I'm going to do is take a little bit of my yellow, a little alizarin, and some white. And I'm making a nice hazy peach color. I'm going to go a little bit lighter. And I'm going to scrub very lightly over some of these darker contour lines. This will soften them up and make them not quite as harsh. I'm going to do this a couple times. It'll help make everything a little more subtle. Okay, I'm going to go a little bit lighter now and a little bit more yellow. Very lightly scrub over. They'll still show through as the paint dries. Want to keep it subtle. Because we're going to go one more round of highlights after this, so making this part a little bit more subtle. I'll go one more round of that. Okay, and then I'm going to go back into my zinc white and yellow ochre. We'll really brighten up just a couple spots here. Okay, I'm going to go back to my round brush now, and I'm going to go into my alizarin, some of my blue. I'm going to grab some white and some yellow ochre. We're going to make that nice gray color again. I'll just test it up here. It's too light, so more blue, more alizarin. A little more yellow. I'll test it again up here. That's pretty close. Go a little bit more blue. And I just want to do another layer. Down below here. eventually having it kind of disappear into the rest of the cloud. So adding a little more alizarin as I go to the left and down. Adding water really helps making it easier to spread the paint around. So if you're having a hard time spreading the paint around, just add a little water to it. Like I said before, down below here, not quite as important as getting a perfect layer. It's just you want to get complete coverage, but a few brush strokes here and there, it's really not going to matter too much. Just going to tidy up the edges here a little bit. Want to keep them soft but not jagged. Okay, and I'm going to take that same color, very thin layer, a little touch of water. Now I'm going to do a layer over my sky. Go right over the edges of the clouds, as long as you keep that layer thin. Okay, then I'm just going to take my small brush again, just go a little bit darker. Kind of reestablish that edge of the cloud a little bit. Maybe we'll reestablish some shadow here. Okay, next I'm going to prop this up here so you can see a little bit better. I'm going to take my flat brush and I'm going to take some of my alizarin and ultramarine blue, make a nice dark color. And grab some of that yellow. Which should help make a nice, almost like a neutral brown gray. I'm going to smush my brush into that paint. And I'm going to create some tree shapes here. Just by tapping. I've got this one tree here. Go all the way down. Got a thinner tree coming up here, so I'm just using the very edge of my brush. Same type of thing here. This is a little bit of a thicker tree, a little bit taller. Tapping my brush. And then the trees start getting a little bit taller as we move over to the right. So keep going up. Use the corner of the brush to get some kind of tall pieces. We'll block in all the way down through here. You can add a little more yellow ochre to it if you want it to be slightly greenish. So I'm going to go another round. So just a little bit more yellow, maybe a touch more blue. Okay, and then I'm going to take my filbert brush, the same color, and we've got a telephone pole. I want to try to flatten it a little bit on top. Then I'm going to take a liner. We've got a power line going right down through. If you make it a little crooked, you can basically just lick your thumb, which is what I did, and then wipe it off and then do it again. Up here there's another one. Okay, and then I'm just going to take my liner brush and kind of tidy up the edges of the pole. Like I said, if you ever mess up, you can just wet your thumb. Okay, what I'm going to do is take my liner, add in a few little branches. Maybe add some leaves coming up a little bit higher. So since I made this power line a little too low here, I'm going to cover it up. Okay, and I'm going to make this tree line over on the right-hand side just a little bit taller. So we'll bring that up some. Okay, and then I'm just going to add in a little bird with my liner. I'll add in another one so you can see it right up close. Just a little curve. Okay, so that completes our painting lesson. For this lesson, just remember to build out your layers really slowly, try to keep your edges soft, and try not to go too complicated with the contours. I know that's easier said than done, but a little bit less is usually more in these types of clouds. And remember, you don't have to copy the reference photo exactly. Make sure you post your progress on the Facebook group page, and if you have any questions, you can email me at tim@timgagnon.com. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon.